Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FreshBooks. Go to freshbooks.com/Arel. In the How Did You Hear About Us section, put The Art of Likeability. You'll get 30 free days of their awesome invoicing, expense tracking, and get paid faster software.
What's going on, Art of Likeability family? Arel Moody here, your host of The Art of Likeability, where we give you incredible secrets that are so secret that you didn't know them. And sometimes after you know them, you still don't know them because if you don't use them, then they're pointless. So the secrets we share help you increase your relationships, build better connections with people. What I like to say is we help you get the words you didn't know you needed, the strategies you didn't know you needed that allow you to say the right thing at the right time to the right people in the right way. Because what likability really is not about tricking people or being fake or anything like that. What it's really about is building relationships. And if you're someone who wants to build meaningful relationships, whether it's with coworkers, whether it's parents, whether it's with friends, whether it's with clients or potential clients, likability is the secret sauce that's going to allow you to separate yourself from everyone else. It's what's going to allow you to build an incredible life for yourself that people are going to look and be like, oh my goodness, why is you getting so many things so well? And you're going to be like, I listened to this podcast called The Art of Likeability with this guy named Arel Moody. And 99% of the people say my name wrong and spell the podcast wrong. I'm okay with that. You can spell likability with an E. I ain't going to get mad at you. Some of y'all be putting in, I love the podcast, Art of Likeability, spell it with an E. There's so many different ways to spell it. 2 ways specifically. I chose the one way that apparently nobody spells it that way. My name is Arel. Some of y'all been calling me Ariel on social media. I'm not offended. I just like to point out that neither of those 2 things exist. But I digress and I'll move on because I have a super awesome, actionable strategy that is going to be I'm really excited about this one. So here's what happens. We talked about it in previous podcasts about not stealing other people's thunder. And what that basically means in short is if someone is talking about something that they've been through and you have a similar experience, don't one-up them. Don't go, oh, you did that? I can do that. Or, oh, you've been to this place? I've been there 7 times, right? That's one-upping them. So some questions that I got from folks is oh man, that's really tough for me because I want to let the person know that I have a connection. How do I do it? Or, what do I do? What do I say if I want to say something? So I'm going to give you a strategy on if you're speaking to someone and they're saying something and it really resonates with you, or maybe you did something extremely similar and you really want to bring it up. This is the most likable way you can do it. I'm going to give you the words you use, okay? So if someone is saying, oh, I really have this itch to start my own business. I want to become an entrepreneur. I want to start my own business. And let's say you are you've been thinking the same thing. Oh, I want to leave my job and I want to start my own business. You might want to say to the person, oh, you want to start a business? Me too. But you steal their thunder when you do that because you make it something that they're telling you about yourself instead of listening and being empathetic for them. So this is the phraseology I want you to start using. It's going to be amazing. So if someone, in our case, we're talking about entrepreneurs, right? So someone has a job and they're thinking about leaving to become an entrepreneur. And they say to you, man, I really have been thinking about leaving my job and starting my own business and becoming an entrepreneur. What you say is, I can really relate to what you're saying. I really get that because I've been thinking a lot about it too. Tell me more about how you've been doing it, whatever it is. So the phrase that you say is, I can really relate to that. I get that. And then you make it again about them. You put the shine, you shine the light away from you to them. So when you say, I can relate to that, it's the most likable way of showing you have a connection. It's the most likable way to agree with someone without worrying about stealing their thunder. So what typically happens is if I say, hey, I want to start my own business, I've really been thinking about it, you steal the person's thunder where you go, man, it's funny you say that. I just got my own domain name and I got this great startup idea. Let me tell you about my startup because you're a kindred spirit and you like entrepreneurship. And a person's like, man, you ain't really listening to me. I'm going to go cry now. And a gallon of Haagen-Dazs cookies and cream ice cream. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to say that, but that's how they're going to feel on the inside, right? But if you say, I can really relate to that. I get that. That makes I get that. I can really relate to that. I've been thinking a lot about that myself. And, what are you thinking about doing if you start a business, right? It works for everything, right? If someone's like, oh, I'm in business right now. It's like, I'm really struggling in my business right now. Instead of going about your struggles, like you say, oh man, I can really relate to that feeling. It's the most likable way. Think about it. Just even think about how it sounds on your ear. Think about if you're talking about anything, whether it's like you want to get into BMX bike riding or you just went on a trip, like someone says, oh man, I just went on this trip to like Jamaica and it was amazing. And a person goes, oh, I really relate to that. I got to travel to there too and I loved it. What did you like most about it? So the key to this formula is saying, I can relate to that. I relate to it. I get that. And then you bring it back to them. And then you ask a question. It's an open-ended question, right? So, oh, I can really relate to that. What is it that you're most interested in? What is it that, why have you been thinking that? Whatever it is, you ask an open-ended question. So next time you're in conversation and communication with someone, that's how you do it. And it works for everything. If someone says to you like, oh, I really am having a lot of trouble with my invoicing, or, I'm an entrepreneur and I just, I can't keep track of my receipts or anything like that. I'm not organized. But like, oh man, I can really, really relate to that. I started using FreshBooks because I was listening to the Art of Likeability podcast. So I went to freshbooks.com/Arel and I got a 30-day free trial. And it absolutely changed the way I can just take pictures of receipts with my phone and just upload them to my software. I can invoice people. I get paid faster. It's changed my life. So I definitely can relate to what you're saying. Tell me more about your issue. What do you feel like you feel most confused about? Right. So by the way, shout out to freshbooks.com. They're pretty good. They're legit. Go to freshbooks.com/Arel. You know what I'm saying? Try the 30-day free trial. But what you do is you say, I can relate to it. You say the reason why you can relate to it. And then you loop it back to the person. That's the key. Okay, that's the key. That's the formula. So the next time you're talking to someone and they say something to you, instead of saying, oh, I get it because I'm the same way, say, I can relate to you. I can get it. And then you ask a question. Because if you just say, I relate to you, that's good. But then the question is what brings it back to them. I mean, think of any scenario you can be in. Like a lot of times people are speaking and you don't know what to say, right? Like they're talking about something they're excited about or something that they're sad about, or whatever it is. And you have no idea what to say. You just can use, I get that. I relate to that. That makes so much sense. I really know what that feels like. Or you can say, wow, I'm really relating to what you're saying. And I have some questions because there's also some things that I'm wondering about. So let's say you don't relate to them, right? You can say like, oh, I also have some questions I'm wondering about. That's a really great way to phrase it. I have some questions I'm wondering about. And then you ask about the thing you can't relate to. So like, for example, if I'm speaking to someone who's talking about parenting, and I'm not a parent in this particular scenario, I'm making this up, right? If someone says, oh, it's really, really hard to be a parent and balance work, and I'm not a parent. I don't want to say, oh, I really relate to that because I got a dog at home. And, taking care of, Poopsie and working my job is really hard. It's not the same. It's not the same, right? So saying that their kid is the equivalent of your dog, it's wrong. What you can say is, I can really relate to what it feels like to be overwhelmed. And, I had some questions I was wondering about. When you look at the balancing, is there any particular area that you feel most confused about? Or is there any area that you feel most stressful? And then just listen. And someone says, oh, because I can relate to being overwhelmed, right? I may not be as overwhelmed as you, or I may not, because it's a different scenario, but I can relate to the concept and the idea. So if you can't relate to anything in specificity, relate to the concept. If you're like, oh, I just dealt with my, dog dying as a scenario, and you never had your dog die. Don't say, oh, I can totally relate to that. My goldfish died. Because you don't want to look into the comparison. But what you can maybe say is, oh, I can relate to what you're saying. Losing someone that we love is very difficult. Tell me more about how you're feeling. That's okay. So if you are clear you're not in competition, you're clear you're using languaging that shows that you relate to the person. That's the key word I want you to take away. When you start speaking to people like, oh, I relate, nod your head, affirm what they're saying, be empathetic in your approach, soften your voice. People are going to like talking to you. They're going to like listening, especially when people are saying problems or saying something they're excited about. It's an extreme emotion. It's going to be very powerful for you to use the word, I can relate. I get it. or I get the concept of it, losing someone, starting something new, hoping for something that didn't show up, whatever is that concept. And then you turn the question around and make it about them with an open-ended question. It's a really, really great formula. So I want you to use it. Go out, impact the world, listen to people, be more empathetic. But I gotta tell you something. This podcast, which you heard today, not gonna impact your life, not gonna do nothing. It's gonna be boring because your life gonna be exactly the same unless you implement this information. Now, if you implement it, oh man, everything changes. Everything transforms into something completely different because you become an action taker. The information's not gonna help you. The implementation of this information absolutely will. You'll build great relationships. People love talking to you. You'll have the it factor. You will be the coolest of the cool. Okay. So let me know if this helped. Please go to iTunes. You can click on the iTunes link in the show notes or in the description. And please, if this was helpful, if any of these episodes been help you, please leave a 5-star review. It really means a lot to me. I read every single one. I care about them. It actually, I kid you not, it actually does way more good than you can imagine. You might think it's not a big deal. Other people have done it, but I'd love for you to do it. It's really powerful. Please go to artoflikability.com. If you go to our website, we got a really cool report for you. It's completely free. Just put your name and email into the box that pops up, and you'll find a really cool report on how to become instantly more likable right now in every situation that you do. It's really good in creating the it factor, if you will. So check it out. Of course, go to dreamjob.artoflikability.com to get our interview manual. If you have a job coming up, don't leave it a chance. Leave it to a system that works. It's just incredible. So if you have an interview or a job, or you want to know someone and you want to give a great gift, it's the greatest gift. And we actually have a really cool video online course now. If you go to dreamjob.artoflikability.com, you scroll to the bottom, there's a link that actually has a video course about that. So it's really, really cool stuff. Just sort of something I thought would be helpful for y'all. So check it out. I'm out of here. I got to go relate to people and ask them open-ended questions in a soft, empathetic tone. Sending you a big old high five. You are awesome.